Welcome to this next installment of the Ao no Kiseki summaries. We'll begin right where we left off with the preparations for the West Zemurian Trade Conference. It's time to delve further into the mess of politics in Crossbell. Now let's dive right in. Chapter 2 begins by showcasing the final preparations being made for the unveiling of Orcus Tower. Detective Dudley finishes his debriefing of the tight security measures being imposed in the state for the next 3 days. The CGF is taking care of Customs and Border Patrol, while the CSPD's District Crime Prevention and Section 2 are largely responsible for security in the city. Chief Sergei is placed at the helm of communications between all these forces, and the SSS is saved as a reserve corps in case of emergency. This is especially important considering the recent arrival of the Red Constellation. The Jaeger's goal for entering Crossbell is still unknown, but it is confirmed that they are receiving backing from the Imperial government. Detective Dudley is counting on the SSS to pick up more clues on the dangerous Jaeger Corps. The group starts off the day with a request from St. Ursula Medical College. Professor Sayland, a world-renowned doctor from Remiferia and vital contributor to the Sayland Corporation, has filled in the vacant roles left by Joachim Gunter. She seems like someone they can trust, since the Sayland Corporation has ties to the Archduke of Remiferia himself. In any case, it's a good idea to visit since she's inquiring about the Gnosis. Randy has slipped the news about sweet Nurse Cecil to Wazi ahead of time, to the mixed reactions of the other three when they find out. On their trip, they'll also be on the lookout for any tips on the Red Constellation. Randy believes that they are the ones who set up the explosions at the mine in order to test the strength of the SSS, to basically see how capable Randy's new home is. The redhead suggests that he deal with his family on his own again, but the others shut that idea down immediately. They're in this together and are ready to support him. Everyone heads out one by one, but Lloyd stops Randy. The detective starts bringing up Randy's father, but the redhead largely brushes it off, saying he felt mostly relieved at the news of his death, since he already cut ties with his old man years ago. Lloyd responds that he'll be here when Randy eventually feels like talking about it. In fact, as the leader of the Special Support Section, he may just have some good advice to impart. Randy's proud of Lloyd's growing confidence as the detective continues. Lloyd truly hopes to be there when Randy needs to get everything off his chest. That's what it means to be partners, right? The redhead responds that he'll be counting on his partner when the time comes. There are more than just a few things going on in the city, from Risha, Ilya, and the Arc-en-Ciel's preparations to entertain the heads of state that will be visiting Crossbell, to the fishing battle being staged throughout the entire autonomous state between the Fishing Emperor Club and the original Fishing Guild. The party also comes across a strange occurrence in the Stargaze Tower after accepting a request from the library to retrieve the ancient books. They arrive to find that every last volume has disappeared. Just who could have taken them? The party then heads over to the hospital. Just like the first time Lloyd introduced his new co-workers, Cecil can't help but wonder if the detective is dating any of the new recruits. Her airheadedness aside, Cecil reports that it's only recently since the aftermath of Dr. Joachim's schemes that the patient's trust in the medical staff has finally begun to return. It appears that Dr. Sayland's reputation and skills are the real deal and a big part in restoring the patient's faith, though. For example, she just completed a successful surgery on Mihail, which cured him of his severe illness. Now she's making preparations for Shizuku's surgery. The no-nonsense doctor gives the SSS a pass even though they arrived 2 minutes later than what she was expecting. Before Dr. Sayland can give a report on the composition of Gnosis, she needs reports from the victims who use this drug. 3 of the patients forgot to fill out the medical questionnaire she issued prior to being released from the hospital, so it's up to the SSS to collect their forms. First off is Mr. Nichols of the Arc-en-Ciel, next is Dino from the Saber Vipers, and last up is Randy's old friend from the CGF, Kless. She's given the medical questionnaires, and after gleaning over them, she's able to report the good news that everyone is now freed completely from the drug's symptoms. Next, she goes over the chemical makeup of Gnosis after running it through tests. First of all, it's all but confirmed that Gnosis is able to lift the brain limiters from a person's mind. Most individuals only make use of half their physical abilities naturally. Without the limiters, though, a person is able to reach their full potential. But the brain naturally places these limitations to help the body conserve energy. Randy confirms that all the CGF troops from the Bellegarde Gate seemed completely wiped following their brainwashing. It was only through the rehab exercises that they regained their stamina and strength. The release of the brain's limiters can also account for the changes in personality that many of the victims underwent. However, this is the extent to what can be explained through a biochemical and medical lens. The ability to draw on incredible luck, or the power to transform into demons, can only be explained not through science, but through some supernatural means. What's most odd is that the chemical makeup of the blue Gnosis and the red Gnosis is exactly the same. It's only through the refining process that the 2 different drugs develop differing hues. So what is it about the red version that is able to transform people into demonic creatures? Unfortunately, science has a limit and is unable to provide an explanation for this phenomenon. Wazi is impressed that a renowned doctor adheres to this view. Dr. Sayland acknowledges that modern medicine is not foolproof, especially regarding problems plaguing the mind and soul. She believes that even Joachim was unable to grasp the complete profile of Gnosis, and Lloyd, Ellie, and Randy confirmed that he said this exactly, that he completed the drug only through trial and error. Dr. Sayland only thought as much, since although Joachim was skilled and passionate, he lacked the intellect of a true genius. And in the end, he chose the wrong path in his relentless pursuit of a completed Gnosis. You see, Joachim attended medical school at the same time as Dr. Sayland, and even after graduation, they occasionally exchanged notes on the latest research in medicine. The fact that he would do such horrible things to others and himself in the pursuit of this drug is difficult for her to fathom. But she continues to the next plan of action. She suggests that the only way they're going to get further answers is if they're able to find and study the pleroma grass, aka the main ingredient of Gnosis. Unfortunately, the botanist the doctor contacted was unfamiliar with the plant. It looks like they've got a lot more sleuthing work to do. After thanking the doctor for her hard work, they exit the research building. The investigation now depends on any info they are able to extract from those corrupted files from the cult's lodge. They pay a visit to Cecil before leaving. She's currently preparing her favorite black tea as a pick-me-up during her night shift. The party tells her to be careful with her health, but she says she's a lot tougher than she looks. She thinks it's due to Guy's influence, then shows them all a copy of the exact same picture Lloyd had in Zero. It's both heartwarming and a fun little way to tease Lloyd, the true ladies' man. They promise Cecil that they'll get to the bottom of Guy's murder. Then they receive a call from guild receptionist Michelle shortly after. Arios would like to exchange info on the trade conference, the Heiwe, and the Red Constellation that evening. The Bracers are grateful for the intel since it's been difficult for them to get any info out of the Imperial capital as of late. Although Bracers are known to clash with Jaegers often, they rarely go up against the likes of the Red Constellation. This is because any sort of provoked attack would end in all-out war. Noelle's aware that the Red Constellation's numbers are equal to that of a small nation. Not to mention, their connections throughout the continent makes it so they can escalate conflicts quickly. Zephyr is the only other Jaeger Corps that could oppose the Red Constellation. It's been reported that Zephyr has suspended their activities since the death of their leader though. But the Red Constellation has been as active as ever. It's due to Sigmund Orlando's leadership, and Randy even believes that his uncle is on the same level as the War God and the Jaeger King. What's truly astounding is that Arios admits that even he may not be strong enough to take on any of those three. Michelle gives him a 50-50 chance against Sigmund, and Randy believes that if his uncle and Arios were to battle, neither would walk away unscathed. But the most troubling news are the rumors that Arios picked up in the Republic. It looks like the Republican government has begun employing the Heiue, and the person responsible for this connection is none other than a woman named Kilika Rudon. She worked as a guild receptionist back in Liberal in the Sky trilogy, but retired a year ago to take a position on the Calvardian Intelligence Agency. The implications of this news doesn't escape Ellie. The fact that the Red Constellation and Heiue are in talks with the major powers' governments respectively, plus taking into consideration their major conflict last year, it's not out of the question that they are currently staging a proxy war in Crossbell. Strangely enough, both Chancellor Osborne and President Rocksmith aren't doing much to keep their dealings a secret. If word got out that either of them had ties to such shady organizations, they would be heavily scrutinized by the international community. So just what could they be planning? Both the guild and police HQ are making use of their connections to search for tips. They look forward to cooperating, especially during these next 3 days, to help prevent any major incidents from harming Crossbell. The SSS and Kia say goodbye to Arios and Shizuku after the girls' long playdate today. They'll see each other soon enough though, since they've promised to view the unveiling of Orcus Tower together tomorrow. Despite the condition of her eyes, Shizuku says she's fine with Kia just describing the good atmosphere of the inauguration. Kia has noticed that Randy has been feeling down lately as well, but the redhead puts on his best bravado for the young girl. Although he understands that the SSS doesn't want him to settle things on his own, he does want to speak frankly with his family at least once. They continue on towards home and decide to eat out for dinner since the chief will be getting back late. Zeit's angry growling at the door draws their attention though. Randy puts on a serious expression and proceeds inside immediately. Lo and behold, Randy's younger cousin is waiting for them in the lounge. He coldly asks what the hell she's doing here, but she only playfully ponders what a way to treat the cousin he hasn't seen in 2 years. But finally, her sadistic side appears. Randy's become weak. If she had set anti-personnel traps, they would have been obliterated the moment they entered. Randy has no response, so Shirley reassures him that she didn't actually set any, since she prefers to leave civilians out of it when they're not at war. Lloyd begins with a diplomatic approach to quell the tension. She apologizes for how she treated him upon their first meeting, but he just dismisses it. Could she at least please hold back from so casually referring to the graphic violence in front of Kia? She playfully apologizes again, but Randy directly asks her what his uncle wants. He must have sent her as his messenger. Shirley says it's fine for him to refuse the invitation tonight, but Randy knows exactly how Jaegers do things. They'll stop at nothing to have this talk. It looks like the redhead is about to head out on his own to meet with his family, but Kia asks if this young lady is a bad person. Shirley appears dejected before noticing how cute Kia is as Lloyd and Ellie pull her away to safety. Randy warns his cousin that if she lays a hand on Kia, he will kill her. She jokes that she at least won't blow up this building, as the conversation takes its toll even on Noelle and Wazi. Lloyd asks to accompany Randy to Nuit Blanc, especially since he's the Special Support Section's leader. Shirley is impressed with his guts and extends an enthusiastic invitation. Wazi also gets one after speaking up, as an exasperated Randy wonders what the hell his co-workers are doing. Lloyd leaves the protection of Kia and the building to Ellie and Noelle. Then Shirley and the 3 SSS men take off to the high-class club. They ride in style in a fancy limousine. Are Jaeger Corps really so profitable? Apparently, the Red Constellation is an outlier since they are constantly employed by wealthy nobles and other affluent parties. Millions of Mira flow into their hands on the regular. Randy asks if they've obtained an airship yet, but they've been unable to secure one since top-class Liberlian ships don't appear on the black market often. Back at the SSS building, the guys are unfortunately missing a video call from Tio. She promises to call again, as Noelle tells her not to worry too much. Chief Sergei returns and reassures the girls that Nuit Blanc is under surveillance by Section 1. The guys finally arrive at the very luxurious venue. Since this place is close to Wazi's host club, he's noticed that it serves a lot more foreign guests nowadays compared to the congressmen who were more frequent customers prior to the cult incidents. They're led to a booth all the way in the back, where Sigmund is waiting for them. Randy wonders why he hasn't heard from him yet, since it's already been 2 weeks since their encounter in the rain. Apparently, the Corps has been busy lately. His uncle can't help but comment that Randy's changed a lot, since he had the audacity to bring people with him instead of coming on his own. He welcomes them all anyhow and offers them food and drink. Sigmund gives Lloyd a chance to ask some questions. It's confirmed that the Red Constellation is here on a contract, though they provide no comment on the employer. He's dismissive of their relationship with Lecter Arundel, though he comments that he's quite an interesting fellow and is a good match for the Heyue's cow. Sigmund and Shirley encountered the branch manager and his men last year in the eastern quarter of Calvard. Though outmatched, Cal's men stood their ground. At that time, they couldn't rely on Yin since he was busy with another job. Speaking of Yin, even the SSS has heard nothing about the assassin since Rivache's downfall months ago. Lloyd finally asks how much this contract is offering, and judging by the reaction, it must be a pretty hefty amount. Though Jaegers must remain confidential about their work, Randy's uncle admits it's around the 100 million Mirad mark. Sigmund finally gets to business on his end, reminding Randy that they'll be making him the next war god soon. Since Randy is his late brother's only son, he has a duty to succeed his father's position. A pissed Randy demands why not Sigmund or Shirley take the title instead, but his uncle says he's known as the Ogre. He only exists for the battlefield and can't become the leader like his brother was. Same goes for Shirley too, perhaps even more so for her, since she lives and breathes fighting. Sigmund believes Randy can already piece together why his father would willingly settle the score with the Zephyr boss. Since Randy had already passed the necessary trial that demonstrates one's ability to become the next war god, his father had no choice but to force the situation and have Randy succeed him. Shirley remembers when her cousin used to be cool and ruthless when fighting Zephyr. In fact, he took out an entire village in order to, but Randy quickly cuts her off with a soft plea. Shirley is disgusted at this meek reaction. Then she and her father get up to leave. Sigmund pauses before his nephew, telling him to make up his pitiful mind on whether he'll follow, run away from, or even decide to fight him. If he can't do any of these things, then he may as well just die. Randy apologizes to Lloyd and Wazi for showing them his pathetic side, but Lloyd's quick to reassure him that it wasn't like that. but blunt as ever Wazi says it looks like his family hit the nail on the head. Of course, it's a pretty jerkish thing to say, but it's true nonetheless. Randy's family knew exactly where to strike to make it hurt. The guys decline the ride offered to them and get back to the SSS on their own. At least they were able to get some good info out of the tense meeting. Really, no other employer but the Imperial government could have offered the 100 million Mira contract. Plus, Sigmund said they would be busy starting tomorrow, which is when the trade conference begins. Based on his intuition, Lloyd suspects that Chancellor Osborne sought out the Red Constellation to ensure his safety during the trade conference, since he does have his fair share of those who oppose him both in the Empire and abroad. Hiring the Jaeger Corps probably also serves a second purpose in testing out how quickly the Bracer Guild and police can respond to the threat. Chief Sergei wants them to be at the Orcus Tower unveiling tomorrow, both as a way for them to clear their heads from all this anti-espionage that isn't even their specialty in the first place, and for the opportunity to observe the heads of state and the people surrounding them. The scene then cuts to Prince Olivert and Mueller discussing important matters in his office. It looks like Class 7 is working hard, so Olivert feels he needs to match their pace. They are still unable to figure out who Duke Cayenne's co-conspirator is, and the intelligence division seems to be having trouble as well. Mueller suggests increasing Prince Olivert's private guard, but the latter says having too many would ruin the image he's hoping to convey. Finally, they discuss plans to meet up with the Liberalian princess the next day. Unfortunately, Estelle, Joshua, and Shara are all busy, so they're unable to meet for a reunion as well. The scene shifts to the skies. Princess Chloe is enjoying the night breeze on the deck of the Arce. Sieg delivers a troubling letter from RNA research about some dangerous factions moving in the Republic. Then Captain Schwartz joins her. They'll have to discuss Imperial problems with Prince Olivert tomorrow, and furthermore, Chloe is planning to rely on an additional connection, courtesy of Estelle and Joshua's recommendation. It's been 2 years since the Non-Aggression Pact was signed in Liberal, but unfortunately, political tensions have only been on the rise. Campanella is seen using Yona's old terminal in the Geofront B sector. He installs the Astral Code program, which grants him access to phase space and the domain of the entire Orbital network. Even though Campanella is able to bypass all protections and gain access to limitless information, the warning of a breach does appear on the terminal. It looks like Enforcer Zero has until morning to browse the data, since Yona will be asleep until then. Crossbell City is alight with excitement at the start of the next day. Various blockades and officers on security are shown among the large crowds. Chancellor Osborne, Lecter, Prince Olivert, and Mueller all arrive on the Eisengraph, the Empire's luxury train reserved for political figures and the royal family. President Rocksmith and Kilika are seen entering the city in a private limousine, surrounded by a large escort. The Arce lands at the airport, where Chloe and the Archduke of Remeferia are reunited almost immediately. CSPD vehicles are then seen escorting each VIP to Orcus Tower in individual private vehicles. Finally, Chairman McDowell, Mayor Croy, and Mariabelle Croy greet the high-profile international guests as paparazzi take pictures to their heart's content. The SSS observe in awe from off to the side. After a brief introduction, Mayor Dieter dedicates Orcus Tower to the advancement of peace throughout the continent. The entire world bears witness to the unveiling of such a magnificent building. Prince Olivert, Princess Claudia, and their guards are reminded of the glory of the Liber Arc and the Central Axis Pillar. Mayor Croy turns back to the crowd and announces the official start to the West Zemuria Trade Conference. Various other groups are watching the event from up on the rooftops. Over these past months, Kao has slowly picked up on Yin's peculiar schedule and is currently working on uncovering this secret. The Red Constellation is also observing, of course. It appears that both of these dangerous groups are planning something for the following night. The scene returns to Campanella, who's observing Orcus Tower through the astral code. It appears that LeBlanc, who's ever in the pursuit of beauty, is somewhere in the city witnessing the glorious unveiling as well. Enforcer Zero pulls up the blueprints of some building, most likely the Orcus Tower, with the intention of handing it over to a certain group of people. Many citizens are watching from the department store's rooftop, including Shizuku and Kia. Kia describes the splendor of the building to her friend. She trails off, though, and doesn't finish the thought out loud. Internally, she wonders what it is about this new building that reminds her of something she's seen before.
The Special Support Section's day officially begins. Since all the international heads of state are staying at Hartman's former estate in Michelin, the entire theme park and hotel have been temporarily closed. The CGF is currently charged with protecting the man-made island. The SSS members share their thoughts and impressions on these high-profile VIPs. Of course, Noelle is a major fan of a talented woman in uniform, Captain Schwartz of Liberal. Ellie has a photo album of Julia and the Liberalian Royal Guard that she picked up during her stay in the country. She promises to show Noelle later. As for Prince Oliver, he has recently gained massive popularity following his hand in successfully ending the Liberal crisis over a year ago. Quite a few support requests come in, but before they get to those, various tips on a certain redhead puts them on a scavenger hunt through the city. They eventually find Lecter, in proper secretary attire for once, right outside his old fishing spot. They also find Kilika in the restaurant on Central Square. They ask her about her old entertainment producer job, but it doesn't appear fake. It seems she truly does hold such a position as well, since it's suspicious that both Lecter and Kilika entered Crossbell around the same time once again. They report their findings to Section 1. There are a lot of fun side quests, including one involving a familiar bard and his loyal companion, but it's a certain urgent quest to find Sunita's lost kitty that provides extra insight into one of Al's new characters. Lo and behold, Randy's cousin, Shirley, asks them what's up as they're searching for Mary. Randy tells her to scram, but Lloyd finally caves and explains the situation since she's so persistent. Shirley clearly understands a lot about cats and gives them some helpful advice. The SSS head back to the Bond's old residence, since it's most likely that Mary has been trying to return to the place that's most familiar to her. The High Bloods are as pretentious and demeaning as always, but Shirley makes sure to put them in their rightful place. The party learns that these guys teased the poor cat and chased it away not too long ago. Mary is seen running off to the entertainment district, so the party splits up and blocks all the exits out of the area. The cornered kitty scrams into the Arc NCL. Mary continues escaping their grasp, leading everyone back to the lobby. Shirley addresses Risha and is impressed that she hasn't let her guard down at all. Furthermore, she's been enjoying watching Risha perform on stage. The young girl starts to approach the dancer, but both of them are the first to notice Mary coming out of hiding. Both Risha and Shirley run after the kitty. Mary somehow finds her way onto the chandelier right as it begins to rise. Shirley immediately takes off at lightning fast speed and hops onto the light fixture. Mary calms down in Shirley's arms, but the chandelier suddenly spins dangerously. Fortunately, Risha quickly hops on stage and catches Mary before the kitty can hit the ground. With the pet found, the party departs from the Arc NCL, but Shirley briefly sticks behind to ask Risha if she can call her by her first name. Risha doesn't have any problem with it, so Shirley leaves in a good mood. Once she's gone, the dancer internally reflects on the info she already knows, that the young girl is the infamous Bloody Shirley. Lloyd gives Shirley a lot of credit once they return to the Bond family. The young Jaeger essentially thanks them all for the fun time, especially since she found a very valuable thing. Shirley takes off, then the party returned to the SSS building shortly after. Kia had a feeling they would be coming back soon, so she was hard at work baking maple muffins as a pick-me-up for everyone. Since they're headed back out on patrol, Kia hands the leftovers to the party. Right as they head outside, a white falcon approaches and circles above them. Kia comes out to greet the falcon and translate for him. Sieg says that he has a message for them. Then Lloyd begins reading the memo that is written on elegant paper. The message asks the party to meet her at the Crossbell airport that evening. though if they cannot make it, they should not feel obligated to send a message in response. Sieg says the decision is theirs as he flies off. Once evening approaches, they enter the airport and marvel at the Arsail outside. A woman in uniform comes to greet them, officially introducing herself as Captain Julie Schwartz. She leads them outside to the Arsail. Back at the SSS building, Kia answers a phone call from Tio. She hasn't been able to connect to their orbments, which were all shut off upon boarding the Arsail. So she called the SSS building instead. Something suspiciously sounds like a train boarding announcement on Tio's end. The tech specialist then tells Kia they'll talk again soon, then she hangs up. Back to the special support section, they are introduced face to face to Princess Claudia herself. Of course, out of the entire party, Ellie and Wazi are the most diplomatic and/or comfortable meeting such a graceful and high-ranking member of society. The next introduction comes as a complete shocker, as the wandering bard whom they had to track down earlier turns out to be Prince Oliver of Erebonia himself. Princess Claudia and Prince Oliver share and reminisce a bit about their journey with Estelle and Joshua and Liberal. Then they unfortunately have to turn to serious matters at hand. The prince makes them privy to the brewing civil war in Erebonia between the reformists and nobility. It appears that the leader of the noble faction, Duke Cayenne, has sent terrorists to Crossbell with the order to assassinate the head of the reformist, Chancellor Osborne. If this were to happen in Crossbell, the fallout will be disastrous for the autonomous state, as not only will its reputation be ruined, but enormous reparations will be levied upon the small state by the Empire. Furthermore, a similar situation is brewing in the Calvert Republic. In this case, grievances over the growing number of Eastern immigrants has given birth to the Anti-Eastern Immigration League. Since President Rocksmith is sympathetic towards the Eastern migrants, this growing terrorist organization has been targeting him. To add on to this potential mess, both Chancellor Osborne and President Rocksmith are surely aware of the targets on their backs, but for some unexplained reason, neither have chosen to notify the Crossbell government of any problems. Keeping their own positions and country's interests in mind, Princess Claudia and Prince Oliver couldn't possibly leak this confidential information to Crossbell's leaders themselves. This is why they had no choice but to rely on the contact Estelle and Joshua recommended to them. The prince and princess allow the SSS to slip these rumors to whomever they believe will be of help. They trade some more information on the intelligence operative Kilika Roren, the Ironblood Lecter Arundel, and the movements of the Red Constellation and Heiwei. Then they promise to keep each other up to date on any further developments. That night, the party gives Chief Sergey and Detective Dudley a rundown on everything they learned. The two higher-ups believe it pertinent to inform the CGF and mayor of these new potential developments. Detective Dudley does believe that the security will be rock solid during the trade conference, what with Arios joining as well. Suddenly, Kia walks in to let them know that someone with freckles is video calling them from the terminal. As expected, it's Jonah. He gives them an urgent request regarding his old terminal in the Geofront. Someone has been accessing it since the previous night. The alert function that Jonah placed on the terminal in case anyone tried to access it just came in this morning. This is definitely troubling, since this means a hacker skilled enough to break through Jonah's complex security system now has access to the entire Orbital net. Detective Dudley says that he's joining them since this could be a major development to the safety of the trade conference. Then, together, the entire party heads to the Geofront, Sector B. They arrive to hear an incredibly distorted version of the song that used to play at Jonah's room. The tech lab is completely devoid of anyone, and the monitors are displaying the blueprints of Orcus Tower. A blaring siren suddenly goes off and the door slams shut. Campanella's voice carries over from the terminal, challenging Lloyd to 3 games of Pong. Various parts of the room then combust into flames. The voice continues, promising that if the detective is able to win 2 out of 3 matches, they'll release the latch on the door. Even if Lloyd does win, Campanella begins preparing another match. But a familiar voice interrupts through the terminal. Campanella's new opponent proves much too tough and immediately wipes the floor with him. Acknowledging his defeat, the enforcer releases the lock on the door, allowing the party to escape right before the massive explosion. As they suspected, Tio was the one who came to their aid. Since the SSS has been dealing with a ton of difficult problems lately, she boarded an airship back to Crossbell earlier this afternoon. An Orbital laptop came in handy as she was able to hack into the match and beat back Lloyd's opponent. As for how she made it through the Geofront on her own, it was a fortunate coincidence that Yin was scoping out the area right at the same time. According to the assassin, the hacker is neither connected to the Heiwei or Red Constellation. Detective Dudley attempts to forcibly bring Yin in for questioning, but the figure that was before them turns out to be one of Yin's talisman clones. Back at the SSS building, everyone takes a moment to welcome Tio back. Even Dudley thanks Tio for the help tonight. Before the night's over, Lloyd requests that the SSS be placed on trade conference security. Something unexpected even for the Hayway and Red Constellation seems to be going on, what with the hacker and the stolen blueprints. It's very likely those blueprints have been obtained by some third party. Dudley agrees to place the SSS on reserve guard duty in the tower. Then they all turn in since tomorrow is a big day. The morning of the trade conference starts with some support requests, as always. There are quite a few interesting ones, including one in the Moon Temple where the SSS finally discovers Reese's true identity as a member of the Gallstritter. The bell at the summit is ringing again, but this time Reese is able to stop it on her own with a church purification technique. The scene begins to shift, but not before Campanella is shown to have been observing them. The SSS then heads to Orcus Tower. In time, it's expected to serve as the premier center of the entire continent, dedicated to cultural exchange and international trade. The lobby alone is an improved version of the already luxurious IBC buildings. Detective Dudley meets with the SSS, followed by Mayor Dieter himself. The latter then proceeds to give them a personal tour of the most important parts of the tower. The SSS clarifies the numerous potential threats lurking in Crossbell while they ride in the high-tech elevator. It's troubling knowing that someone was able to hack right into the Orcus Tower database to obtain blueprints. Even though Mayor Dieter made sure to strengthen the OrbitalNet security measures, it looks like it wasn't enough. However, the most suspicious people to Dieter are Chancellor Osborne and President Rocksmith. Crossbell has sent various treaties and proposals ahead of time to the two major powers, and the responses have been nothing but favorable. It all seems very strange coming from two nations that have been fighting over Crossbell for decades. Mayor Dieter really has no idea how the trade conference will go. First stop is the 34th floor, where the staff will be stationed during the conference. The security planning room, press room, and break lounge are all included on this floor. Dieter shows them to the stairwell and explains that only floors 34, 35, and 36 will be open during the conference. The rest will all be sealed by sturdy metal shutters. The actual conference will be held in a massive hall on the 35th floor. Private break rooms for each head of state are found on the 36th floor. A hallway in the middle of this floor overlooks the grand room of the main conference. This resource will be a great boon to security. Finally, Dieter takes them to the magnificent rooftop. Everyone takes the time to admire the view and the breeze from atop the tower. The mayor actually plans to open this up to the public soon so that they may also enjoy the view. Dieter then takes his leave after receiving an urgent phone call.
The trade conference officially begins at 1 p.m. Lawyer Grimwood serves as an important witness since he specializes in both international and common law, while Arios MacLean serves as chief security and represents the neutral standpoint of the Bracer Guild. The SSS and Detective Dudley are watching the proceedings from the upper floor. The latter charges the party with patrolling these 3 floors before he heads back to the security room. They speak to a variety of people, both familiar and new, on their patrols. The trade conference is just entertaining its first break by the time the SSS finishes up their first round of the area. The press take the time to snap photos of the international VIPs, while the staff hangs tight across various break rooms. Lawyer Ian says the entire conference is going well so far since a number of the mayor's trade deals have already been agreed to. Everyone is obviously relieved to hear that, but Mr. Grimwood says the second half will be much more contentious, what with the proposals from each individual nation. Of course, Crossbell security will surely be a major topic. The non-aggression pact signed in Liberal 2 years ago eliminated some tensions, but ultimately it does little in regards to Crossbell, since the autonomous state was never even part of the signing in the first place. Though many other sovereign territories exist, such as Le Mans and Ord, Crossbell is in a unique position in that its suzerainty is allowed only by the goodwill of Erebonia and Calvard, meaning that they are the sovereign territory of these two nations. Going forward, both the Empire and the Republic would have to agree on any proposal related to Crossbell. The SSS should still have faith though, since it looks like the chairman and the mayor have their own proposals regarding Crossbell's independence. Their conversation is interrupted by a call from Dudley. He relays the message that both President Rocksmith and Chancellor Osborne have requested the Special Support Section's presence. They are in no place to refuse, so if things do get out of hand, they are to leave the diplomatic talks to Ellie, since she has the most experience in these kinds of dealings. Since the journalists are blocking the way to the elevators, they take the stairwell up to the 36th floor. They catch a heartfelt moment between Lecter and Princess Claudia. Lecter's recalling his recent visit to Reupload, where he was reunited with Lucy Sayland, a friend from Genis Royal Academy's student council. Like nothing has changed, Chloe completely sees through Lecter's silly demeanor. She recalls other fond memories with the student council and hopes they can all have a reunion. Lecter goes silent, but Chloe does her best impression of what the real him should be saying instead. Her attempts cheer him up, so Lecter tells her to just wait, though she shouldn't get her hopes up. They part on good terms, then the redhead calls out the eavesdropping SSS. Lloyd and the others learn a bit about Lecter and Princess Claudia's pasts, including the fact that Osborne himself paid right out of his own pocket for Lecter's tuition expenses at Genis. The Imperial Secretary leaves them with a word of warning about the shrewdness of both Rocksmith and Osborne, then he heads downstairs. They visit with the Republican president first. Ellie gets to demonstrate her superb diplomacy skills as she represents the entire party. President Rocksmith wished to meet the people who were responsible for sealing the fate of former Chairman Hartman and bringing an end to the DG cult's machinations. For their incredible accomplishments and great service, he would like to award them with medals. Tio immediately picks up on how strange it would be for Crossbell citizens to receive a Republican award, but the president says it should be no problem for the people of Calvard's own territory to receive them. He jovially tells them not to worry about this obviously veiled threat, and to proceed with their visit to Chancellor Osborne's quarters. The SSS is received by the Imperial Chancellor next. The intimidating man is currently enjoying the splendid view of the land below them. He comments how human society is finally reaching the great heights of the ancient civilization, and how these structures, such as the Liber Arc, are a symbol of both the foolishness and possibilities of mankind. They finally sit down, where Osborne bluntly asks them for how much longer do they think Crossbell can hold on to independence. See, the only constant in history is that no nation is immune to eventual destruction. Noel responds that they can and will do so forever, as long as there are citizens who are willing to protect this land. Osborne commends such strong will, but questions what happens when multiple strong wills clash. It's only inevitable that the more tenacious of the two will engulf the other one. When this happens, all sense of justice and morality is tossed aside, and the entire world goes up in the flames of war. Lloyd brings up the will of the Liberal Kingdom 12 years ago during the 100 Days War, and how that smaller nation was able to repel the larger flames of the Empire. The Chancellor agrees that Liberal was a strong opponent that did well to overpower a disorganized empire. Crossbell could learn a lot from this kingdom's example, yet Osborne wonders if those from this autonomous state even possess such a resolute will. He has no intention of awarding any kind of medal to them, then bids them farewell for now. The SSS takes a moment to regain their bearings after meeting with such an intimidating figure. Lloyd cheers everyone up with his strong positivity and leadership though, so they're able to return to their original posts with uplifted spirits. Tensions arise once the trade conference resumes. Both Chancellor Osborne and President Rocksmith bring up multiple damning points regarding Crossbell's DG cult disaster. Osborne asks how Crossbell can guarantee the safety and security of international markets and the people in the aftermath of that unprecedented scandal. Both Prince Olivert and the Archduke of Remetheria try to focus on Crossbell's major strides since then, such as the major overhaul of government corruption that's been taking place. Princess Claudia suggests they allow Mayor Croy and Chairman McDowell to govern how they see fit for this next term while the international body observes, but Osborne and Rocksmith shoot down her young idealism. Her country is a monarchy with no real democratic or parliamentary structure, so she has no basis for comment. Osborne piles on further criticism, asking lawyer Ian for the number of reformed legislation in Crossbell in the past 10 years. Mayor Dieter's calls to the growing amount of reformations in the most recent years falls on deaf ears as the Republican president and Imperial Chancellor continue to tag team outlining Crossbell's flaws. Up where the party is observing, Dudley receives an urgent call from Section 1. Reports have come in claiming that the Heiue and Red Constellation have disappeared from their respective bases. This was in Dudley's expectations, so he tells them to stay calm while he heads back to the security room. Chairman McDowell's loud accusation turns their attention back to the conference. Chancellor Osborne has just proposed the disbandment of the Crossbell Guardian Force. Princess Claudia attempts to bring up the non-aggression pact, but he claims that this matter is not a show of force. The Chancellor states that the CGF is a pseudo-military at best and is a waste of Crossbell's finances, especially considering the limited power of their armaments compared to that of the Imperial armies. They should rely on Imperial troops to provide protection instead. President Rocksmith, too, suggests that the number of CGF troops be greatly reduced. In fact, the Republic can assume protection of the Tangram Gate, and the Empire can take responsibility for the Belgard Gate. The two continue to rub each other's backs as the mayor and chairman struggle to muster any adequate response. Chief Sergei calls Lloyd to relay a message from Commander Sonia. The CGF's radar system tasked with tracking airship movements has been completely destroyed at both gates. It's the work of the suspected terrorist groups, so they best be prepared for anything. Back on the conference floor, Mayor Croy has finally risen from his chair and is about to speak when Ario shouts at them all to get back. Two large airships suddenly appear in front of Orcus Tower. Heavy artillery blasts the windows, but Mayor Croy has ensured their bulletproof construction. The leaders of the different nations step towards the back of the room as their personal security rush in. The Imperial Liberation Front and Anti-Immigration League hijack the sound system to state their grievances and announce their intent to end the lives of both the Chancellor and President here and now. The airships make their landing on the rooftop, then the terrorists shuffle out into the tower. Dudley calls for immediate reinforcements from the CGF and CSPD on the 34th floor, but the tower's security systems have been hijacked. The steel barricades shut off access to both the stairwells and elevators. Tio connects to the system and is able to unlock the one barrier that is blocking their stairwell. However, she suspects that this action has likely strengthened the security on the other panels. Back on the 35th floor, Dudley and the CSPD who are present are putting up a valiant effort, but are no match for the heavy weaponry of the terrorist groups. Arios McLean, followed by Captain Schwartz and Major Vander, provide an opportunity for Dudley to lead his injured men to safety. The SSS arrive in the hallway and are warned by Lecter and Kilika that enemy reinforcements are approaching. After taking care of the archaisms, they turn back to the other side of the hallway. The terrorists have been beaten back by the combined forces of their 3 opponents, plus Dudley, who has since returned. The enemy launches a stun grenade to buy time for their retreat. Yona arrives on the Orbal net to assist Tio in retaking the tower's security system from the mystery hacker. The intruder easily relinquishes his controls and escapes. With the shutters open, the experienced counterintelligence officers, Kilika and Lecter, with Julia and Mueller as escorts, plan to head to the rooftop to disarm the planted Orbal bombs that are set to bring down the entire tower. The rest take the elevator down to the geofront entrance in Orcus Tower's foundation to pursue the terrorists. Arios and Dudley immediately take off when the elevator doors open, but run into a dilemma, since the 2 terrorist groups have split off in different directions. The 2 mentors send the SSS in the direction of the Imperial Liberation Front, while they go after the Anti-Immigration League. The party enters the D Division to find a massive underground parking lot. Tio scans the area and pinpoints 8 figures moving nearby. The terrorists fire on the party as soon as they notice them, wondering who the hell these brats are who were able to sniff them out and even put up resistance so quickly. In any case, the group keeps moving with the SSS in hot pursuit. Fighting archaisms all along the way, they finally hear the sound of a large explosion. The enemy has destroyed a bridging connection to throw the party off, so Lloyd and the others have to find another way around. Further ahead, the terrorists find that their bombs have been deactivated. Their leader tells them not to lose heart though. Another chance to slay the Blood and Iron Chancellor will appear if they just live to see another day. This is when the party finally catches up. There's no reasoning with this group, so the cops must take them in by force. Before the terrorists can be arrested, heavy missiles appear from the side and nearly strike the SSS. A CGF armored vehicle and multiple archaisms roll up and buy the criminals time to escape. The autopiloted armored vehicle eventually goes up in flames once it takes enough damage. Suddenly, sounds of heavy machine gun fire and anguished screams are heard from the direction the terrorists ran off. The SSS arrive just in time to witness the complete annihilation of the Imperial Liberation troops by the Red Constellation. Shirley notices the lone survivor cowering in the corner and provokes him to attack her. His flimsy attempts go nowhere, and he's soon held at knife point. Before Shirley can slit his throat open, Randy screams at her to stop. Ellie and Wazi check on the horrifically massacred bodies, discovering the inevitable. All of the men have died, save for the one in Shirley's grip. Since the Jaegers have an official document of employment from the Imperial government, there's nothing the SSS can do to arrest them. Randy furiously grips his uncle by the collar, demanding explanation for this cruel massacre, but the only response he gets is a blow to the face. Sigmund says this needn't have happened if Randy was able to capture all those guys in the first place. They let the lone survivor go and toss him over to the SSS before they leave. A trembling Randy finally gets up and screams in anguish and rage. Over in the Geofront C Division, the Heiue have successfully seized the Republican terrorists. Dudley claims Cal has no legal right to take the captured men, even if the Heiue have a written contract from the Republican government. Since he has orders from the mob elders, Cal says he and his men, including Yin, aren't afraid to take the criminals by force. The Heiue then take their leave as well. The scene returns to the conference room on the 35th floor. Prince Olivert is outraged when he hears of the Chancellor's contract with a Jaeger Corps in order to execute the terrorists. However, the biggest problem for Crossbell is how this situation reflects exactly on its lacking security. the state was unable to guarantee the safety of the heads of state and all those in Orcus Tower. It was only because of the Chancellor and President's foresight that the dangerous situation was thwarted. Of course, Princess Claudia and Prince Olivert finally see exactly how crafty these leaders' plans were. Mayor Croy speaks up, admitting that what he's about to say next is more than just a mere proposal. It's a true declaration of intent. Crossbell will no longer bend to the whims of larger nations. From now on, he's advocating for the complete independence of this autonomous state. Down in the geofront, the Red Constellation and Heiue just happen to cross paths at the same time. No fighting goes down at the moment, since they still have parts of their contract's orders to fulfill. Finally, Shirley takes notice of Yin and asks why he fights with a disguise. It constricts his natural muscle movement. Surely he would be stronger without it. Yin has no words, while Kao is intrigued by this revelation. The two groups bid farewell for now, then head their separate ways, bringing Chapter 2 to a close. The brief intermission begins 2 weeks after the events of the trade conference. In this time, Crossbell citizens have sympathized with Mayor Dieter's proposal for the state's sovereignty. Since Crossbell has come so far as a prominent financial and trade center within the continent, many citizens believe it's about time they're given their own independence. Lloyd is still thinking about what happened to those terrorists while on the way to Mishalam. He turns to Zeit and asks what a leader should do in this situation, since it seems like the other SSS members are still dwelling on that moment as well. Tio walks over and translates for Zeit. There's no need to think logically in this kind of situation. Rather, he should just speak whatever is on his mind. Tio reassures Lloyd that it's natural to be in shock after witnessing so many cruel deaths, but the detective says he should have been prepared for this considering his job as a detective. Tio responds that preparedness is different from being used to it. If that were the case, she and Randy should have been unfazed by what happened, considering their pasts. To Tio, no one is more fit to be a detective than Lloyd, whether he is prepared to encounter such gruesome scenes or not. Her words have brightened Lloyd's spirits, so he goes on to speak with the rest of the SSS on the boat. From Wazi, he surprisingly gets some hints of a difficult past, perhaps one even involving the slums. Ellie and Noelle share their thoughts on the proposed changes following the trade conference, especially regarding the CGF's future and the actual feasibility of Mayor Croy's declaration of independence. Lloyd cuts this line of conversation and says they should just make the most out of this trip to Mishalam that's been so generously offered by Maria Bell. They can worry about all the important stuff when they get back. Randy finally opens up a bit about his past. He used to have a friend who had the same young idealism as Lloyd, but a lot of stuff happened and he ended up passing away. Then Randy abandoned the Jaeger life and arrived in Crossbell. He's ashamed that even after 2 years, he hasn't changed at all. The only reason he confronted his uncle down in the geofront was due to his blind rage. Looking to cheer him up, Lloyd lets Randy in on everything he and the others appreciate about him, so it's okay that he gets knocked down from time to time. Once everyone's in better spirits, Lloyd finally speaks with Kia on the deck. He apologizes for worrying her for the past couple weeks, but Kia says it's okay. She actually noticed that everyone seemed to be feeling down, so she wanted to help somehow, but wasn't sure how. But since everyone seems to be feeling better now, she's looking forward to making fun memories at Mishalam. They arrive and are surprisingly greeted by Fran, Cecil, Ilya, Risha, and Sully. Leave it to Maria Bell to gather all the beautiful ladies in one spot. Their first real treat is a private reservation to the newly opened beach attraction, courtesy of the IBC president. The guys head over together and choose their rental swimwear. Wazzy changes in private while Lloyd and Randy are still chatting by the lockers. Randy finds it suspicious, but eventually brushes it off. Once the guys finish setting up the chairs and umbrellas, all the SSS ladies arrive. Lloyd is LOL speechless and oblivious as always. Then the Arc-en-Ciel women show up, leaving everyone speechless. What follows is a spectrum of fun activities. Lloyd and Risha teach Kia and Sully how to swim. Then the detective joins Randy, Noelle, Ilya, and Wazzy in a few matches of beach volleyball. He goes on to help Fran, Tio, and the observing Zeit make a large sandcastle. Then gets the great opportunity to help Ellie, Cecil, and Risha put sunscreen on their backs. Lastly, he looks for what's called happiness stones with Kia and Sully, and whoever finds the biggest one wins. Following this activity, Lloyd heads over to the refreshment stand and orders for everyone. After a fun couple of hours, they return to the locker rooms. Randy asks Lloyd about all those special moments he had with the ladies, when once again, Wazzy is able to completely change in private while the other two are still chatting. Randy feels an overwhelming sense of defeat when he missed his chance to discover some secret, but alas, there's nothing else they can do but change themselves. Next up are the fun attractions at Michelin Wonderland. Lloyd is given 5 tickets, which he can then use to invite friends of his choice to the various rides and activities, including the Mirror Castle, Ferris wheel, and fortune-telling tent to name a few. Soon night arrives, prompting them to head to the guest mansion for a special dinner with Mayor Dieter and Maria Bell. An extravagant feast is laid out before them as they discuss the ideals that Dieter is striving towards. Though the proposed referendum vote lacks the power to grant Crossbell's independence on its own, it will serve as a strong declaration of intent. The strong will of mankind, when pursuing an ideal with pride, brings forth unlimited possibilities. Crossbell's future will not be an easy path to tread, but even so, it's up to the young to walk it with heads held high. Lloyd finds himself unable to sleep that night, thinking of all the barriers they must overcome. He enters the lounge and finds Risha gazing out the window. She feels like she's lucked out since Lloyd appeared right as she was wishing for someone to join her. Lloyd bluntly asks her why her smiles never reach her eyes. It appears that she's already given up on happiness. In fact, it reminds him of the empty smiles Cecil used to don in the aftermath of Guy's passing. Even though Ilya is always near her, why does she smile with such sad eyes? Risha is honestly shocked that Lloyd is able to see right through her. She confesses that she may be leaving Crossbell soon to continue on the family business. Ever since she was a child, she has been pursuing this path that her ancestors have carried on since the very beginning. It's a dark, secretive path, one that has the power to shift the course of history. She's inherited it from her dad and has been living for it ever since. She's thankful for Lloyd's listening ear, and he's about to say he'll always be there, but Kia calls out to him. She was having a scary dream, so Lloyd offers to keep her company. Risha asks him to keep everything she revealed tonight a secret from Ilya until she develops the courage to tell her herself. They say goodnight, then return to their respective rooms. Lloyd has a nightmare about Joachim's demonic form and the familiar line from Zero no Kiseki, "Come find me," before he's awoken by Wazzy. Kia has gone missing, so the guys begin a search that soon draws the attention of the girls as well. No one's able to find her, and even Tio's scanning mode is unsuccessful. Zeit hurriedly leads them to the entrance of the amusement park and warns them to be careful when proceeding. There's an eerie chill in the air, especially when they come across the creepy jester masks on the banners of the theme park. Unbelievably, the main entrance sign has changed to The Fool's Wonderland. They enter the park to find other eerie changes. Tio can't forgive whoever replaced Mishi as the mascot when two ghostly apparitions appear and attack the party. They closely resemble the fog monsters belonging to a certain enforcer from Sky SC. Once the monsters disappear, Lloyd shouts at the intruder to stop hiding. A young boy, one that is familiar to the SSS, greets them from the rooftops. He finally introduces himself officially to the SSS as Enforcer Zero of Ouroboros. Lloyd is in no mood for pleasantries. He and the party prepare to get answers from Campanella by force, especially regarding Kia's location. The Enforcer claims he just saw her dizzily passing by a while ago. He snaps his fingers, mysteriously returning the entire park to normal. Campanella then points them towards the Mirror Castle before taking off. The SSS is rather shaken after their first official meeting with a member of Ouroboros, but there's no time to dawdle. Kia is finally found in front of the Mirror Castle, blankly staring up at it as an azure glow surrounds her. She keeps asking, "Why is that so?" before she's awoken from that state by the SSS. She responds completely normally and wonders why she's in front of the castle, to the exasperation and relief of everybody. The only thing she can remember is a voice calling out to her. Or was she the one calling out to someone? Either way, they all return to the hotel. The SSS and friends are heading back to the city the next day. Maria Bell eventually joins Lloyd and Kia up on the deck. She can't believe those jokesters from Ouroboros. First, one of them steals her dolls, then another one messes with the theme park. She'll have to reinforce the security for next time. Then Maria Bell suggests taking a photo together with everyone to commemorate this fun event. Lloyd leaves to gather everyone else, leaving Kia and Maria Bell alone together. Once he leaves, the scene goes suddenly quiet. Maria Bell addresses Kia in a peculiar tone, knowing that something must be troubling her. She offers the young girl her help before the scene fades to black, bringing the intermission to a close. And that's where we're going to end part 2. That was a crazy trade conference, guys. Who did you get for your special bonding event in the intermission? I want to know. Big thanks to Xaveze, an aspiring voice actor, for helping me out with this video. Next time we'll see what Ouroboros is planning to do in Crossbell. So until next time, take care. See ya!